I was just trying to find my arrogant little cat. Who would have thought it climbed up a tree and couldn't get down? I put my hands on my hips and scolded it from head to toe. Then I hitched up my skirt and prepared to climb the tree. But what I never expected was that my future brother-in-law would see the whole thing. Han Zhan was just about to step out to help, but the next second, he was frozen in shock. You looked around, ensuring no one was there, and then hitched your skirt up at the waist and nimbly started to climb the tree. Those movements contrasted sharply with your chubby figure. Han Zhan pulled his foot back, quietly retreating. You scrambled up the tree in a flash, and while clutching the cat, you slid down with ease. Young Master Han, are you there? Your eldest brother's voice suddenly rang out. You quickly pulled your skirt back down, instantly transforming back into a well-behaved little lady. Xizhu, what are you doing here? Suja saw you and paused in surprise. I came to find Xiaobai. You held up the cat in your arms. Just as Su Xizhu was about to ask something, Han Zhan stepped out from behind a tree on the other side. In that moment, as you looked at that legendary young man, your pupils suddenly constricted. You stared at the Han Zhan before you, completely stunned. Your own lively brother is handsome enough, but compared to this person, he's completely overshadowed. Terms like elegant as a jade tree or a gentleman as fine as jade are far too weak and couldn't possibly describe him. Only one phrase popped into your mind: peerless beauty without equal in the world. This man is beautiful, but not in a feminine way. That air he carried made you feel that wherever he stood, flowers could bloom right there. Holding the cat, you couldn't help but marvel inwardly. Big sister has such good fortune. It is lucky I'm still young, so I can admire him openly. Wait, an alarm bell suddenly went off in your head. Wasn't he with your oldest brother just now? When did he appear? You froze. Han Zhan looked at you, then glanced at the cat in your arms, which was also staring with round eyes, the corners of his mouth curling up slightly, but he said nothing. Just then, someone came to report that the Duchess was leaving. Han Zhan took the opportunity to take his leave, and you also hurried, clutching the cat, to make a quick getaway, slipping away. On the other side, inside the Dingguo Duke's carriage, the Duchess, Gongsun Jing, looked at her son, of whom she was so proud, pondering to herself, John, we met the eldest daughter of the Su family today. Her manners were very proper. Mother thinks she is quite suitable. What do you think? Han Zhan nodded, but his mind flashed back to the image of you holding the cat, hands on your hips as you lectured someone, a hint of a smile flashing in his eyes unconsciously. The Duchess noticed it and assumed her son was very satisfied with Su Ximei, feeling completely at ease. Therefore, the two families soon arranged the betrothal. Of course, that is a story for later. At this moment, you were sitting in your room, combing Xiaobai's fur stroke by stroke, cat fur flying everywhere, but your mind was wandering. Just how much of that scene did he actually see? Smack. Snowball couldn't take it anymore and swiped at you with a paw. Of course, claws retracted. What is wrong? You snapped back to reality, flipped the cat over, and started brushing its belly. Let's try a different spot. Fine. Snowball gave you a look that said, are you blind? Completely giving up resistance, lying flat and letting you do as you pleased. After all, it chose this human to scoop its litter, so it just had to spoil you. However, the peace and quiet on your end stood in stark contrast to the drama in the front hall. As soon as the Duke's people left, your Aunt Zhang's expression shifted instantly from delighted to furious. Bring those two maids to me. She was trembling with rage. If they dare ruin Mei's marriage prospects, I won't let them off easily. Your eldest brother, Suja, huddled to the side, not daring to make a peep. Soon enough, his two headmaids, Jichen and Jichu, were dragged in, their faces deathly pale. Juchu, banking on her pregnancy, cautiously guarded her stomach as she knelt. This gesture completely ignited Zhang's temper. You bold hussy, what day is it today? And you dare to cause trouble? Simone, give them a lashing first. Madame, please spare me. Zhichu immediately began to wail, her voice shrill. My life is worth little, but I carry the eldest young master's flesh and blood. This is the eldest grandson of the Marquis's estate. She wept as she spoke, glaring viciously at Jishun. It was Jichen. She was jealous of me and wouldn't let me see a doctor. She even pushed me. I was only afraid of harming the young master, which is why I caused a scene. Jichen trembled all over, immediately kneeling to cry out her innocence. I am innocent, madam. It was Zhichu who insisted on making trouble today. I couldn't stop her. The two maids began to argue instantly. Your second aunt, Madame Zhou, watched the chaos with delight, chiming in with a sarcastic tone. Sister-in-law, if you ask me, you should just let the child stay. To gain a nephew at the cost of the young lady's marriage might just be worth it. Besides, our Mei is so talented. She'll have no trouble finding a husband anyway. She simply wanted to make your Aunt Zhang's life miserable. Silence. The old madam roared in anger. Behave yourself, Zhou. Your mother, Madame Zhang, was like a ghost from start to finish, only listening, never speaking. At this moment, your elder brother, Suja, finally could not hold back. He looked at his mother, Madame Zhang, in desperation. After all, it was his first child. He couldn't bear to lose it. Seeing her son's spineless behavior, Madame Zhang's anger burned even brighter. In ordinary times, an illegitimate eldest son, she might have let it pass, but not today. At such a critical moment, when her daughter is about to marry into the duke's estate, creating such a mess? Was this not inviting disaster? This child must not be kept. Seize them. The old madam gave the order. With a cold gaze, she delivered the final verdict. Get Jichu an herbal concoction, and then sell her off. Jichin is forbidden from speaking from now on. Sell her as well. As for their families, have them all sent away to the estate. Ruthless, truly ruthless. Jichu and Jichin turned deathly pale in an instant. Young master, save me. Please, save your child. Jichu shrieked in desperation. Just as Su Xizhu opened his mouth to speak, he was silenced by a single glare from the matriarch. He could only watch helplessly as the two maids were dragged away. For a moment, the entire hall was terrifyingly silent. Your eldest brother, Su Xizhu, was completely stunned, looking at his grandmother and at the cold, icy faces of his mother and sister. He found it difficult even to breathe. In fact, the Duke of Ding's household had already heard about this farce, but the Su family handled it quickly enough, ruthlessly enough, and cleanly enough. Therefore, although Gongsun Jing found it a bit distasteful, she didn't take it too much to heart. After all, she had seen plenty of such garden drama in prominent families. As long as it didn't affect the big picture, it didn't matter. And so, a scandal that could have ruined the marriage proposal was crushed by the matriarch's thunderous intervention. Your eldest brother, Su Xizhu, became the biggest loser. Not only did he lose his child, but he also lost all face in front of the entire family and became a sinner in the eyes of his sister, Su Ximei. Watching his dejected, retreating figure, the matriarch let out a long sigh. She only hoped now that the Duke of Ding's family would appreciate how cleanly and decisively they had handled it, and not call off the marriage. Otherwise, when the Marquis returns, he will likely be very disappointed in his eldest grandson. Inside the bedroom, your older sister, Su Ximei, clung to Madame Zhang and sobbed. She had never imagined her marriage prospects would be ruined by her own brother. At this moment, she truly resented Su Xizhu. Mother, how could brother be so thoughtless? He had to pick today to cause such a scandal. How old is he even, to be fooling around with a maid and getting her pregnant? Mother, if this gets out, how can I ever show my face? He is trying to ruin me. I won't be able to marry Hanshi or become the heir's wife. At the thought that the dignified, elegant young man might now be out of her reach, Su Ximei felt a pain so sharp it nearly suffocated her. Madame Zhang felt for her daughter and hurriedly comforted her. That won't happen. Maids can be troublesome, but which household doesn't have such matters? Don't worry. Your grandmother handled it very properly. It will be fine, though she defended her son with her words. In her heart, she was cursing Su Xizhu to high heaven. Besides, our Meiji is so outstanding. How many young ladies in Shengjing can compare to you? The Duchess of Dingguo was very fond of you just now. Rest assured, this marriage will go through. Though Madame Zhang had no confidence herself, she still forced herself to comfort her daughter. Really? Mother, you aren't lying to me. Hope flickered in Su Ximei's eyes. Of course, our Mei Jay was born to be a duchess. Madame Zhang smiled. But inside, she thought bitterly, my daughter's marriage must not have a single flaw. She looked at Su Xizhu, who was cowering to the side, her eyes filled with disappointment and fury. She knew that if this marriage fell through, life for us in the Marquis's manor will become difficult. Meanwhile, Lady Zhou of the second branch gloated at their misfortune, while your own third branch remained peaceful and undisturbed. Mother, sister, I'm home. Your lively brother Su Wen came running in noisily. Madame Zhang was in the middle of bathing you and Snowball, and she rubbed her temples in frustration at the sound. This brother of yours is older than you, yet you're the one who always has to worry about him. He's practically the younger one. Just stay right there. Don't come any closer. You rolled your eyes at him with a huff. Wait until we're finished washing Snowball. Then you can come over. Otherwise, if Snowball doesn't like the look of you, it might chase and scratch you and get water everywhere. Snowball seemed to understand your words and let out a compliant meow. You smiled and petted it, making it meow repeatedly. Although Su Wen was dying to get a closer look, he obediently stayed where he was. A moment later, Snowball was carried off to have its fur dried, and Su Wen scampered over to you. Mother, sister, look at the wonderful things I brought you. He proudly presented 2 daggers of different sizes, as if showing off a treasure. Madame Zhang's mouth twitched, at a loss for how to praise him. This is a sweet gesture from your brother, but you are still too young, so I will keep them for safekeeping. Madame Zhang immediately took your dagger away. You felt reluctant to give it up, but there was nothing you could do. You would bet anything that, once this dagger was in your mother's hands, it would be gone for good, just like your New Year's money. However, your brother Su Wen secretly slipped another dagger into your hand. It was smaller and sharper than the other 2. Little sister, you must keep this well hidden. If mother finds out I bought you this, I'll be in serious trouble. Su Wen beamed with pride. Let's go to my room. Xiao made something delicious. We can eat together. You changed the subject. Your brother, Su Wen, cheered up instantly, thinking his little sister was truly thoughtful. Once in your room, you had your nursemaid bring out your stash and gave the money to Su Wen. It was enough to cover his debts. Little sister, don't worry. I'll pay you back once my monthly allowance arrives next month. Su Wen looked at the purse in his hands, delighted. No rush. Keep the money. It is not convenient for me to go out. I'll have plenty of things to ask of you later. You rolled your eyes at him. If you really forced him to pay you back, he likely wouldn't be able to step out of the house for months. Oh, and brother, while you're out, If you come across anyone selling themselves into service who knows medicine, please keep an eye out for me. An idea struck you, and you added, why would I need to watch for that? Don't we already have a manor doctor? Suen asked. Puzzled. Don't overthink it. Just keep an eye out for me, that is all. Don't tell anyone about this. You explained. You certainly didn't want to entrust your life entirely to the doctors of this era. You secretly practiced yoga and the martial arts from your past life, keeping your physical health in top condition. Although Su Wen didn't understand, he still agreed obediently. Ever since he followed your advice, his popularity and status within the household had risen rapidly. After your brother left, you took out your secret notebook. It was filled with detailed notes on how to avoid the various pitfalls of this era. You have plenty of time now, since the heavens allowed you to transmigrate with your memories intact and granted you such an awkward middle-of-the-road status. You have to plan for your own future. Over the next few days, the atmosphere at the Marquis of Annan's estate began to thaw. Your eldest brother, Su Xizhu, was still confined to his bed, and your eldest sister, Su Ximei, was going through an impressive number of handkerchiefs. You didn't care about any of that. You were still just a baby, chasing after Xiaobai all day long. Of course, because your second aunt, Su Xilan, had been grounded by your grandmother for laughing too loudly, you kept a much lower profile. Finally, the stifling tension completely dissipated. The Duke of Ding's family came to propose a marriage match. The dark cloud hanging over the Su estate vanished in an instant. Whenever you saw your eldest aunt, she seemed to walk with a gust of wind at her back, as if she had her own personal fan following her around. I told you, May. Jay was outstanding in every way. The Duke of Ding's family wouldn't be blind enough to let her go. Madame Zhang spoke with a much louder voice now, boldly hitting back at those who had previously mocked their branch of the family. Sister-in-law, we should just keep that talk within our own family. Madame Zhou chimed in, sarcastically throwing cold water on the situation. After all, they are only betrothed, not yet married. If the Duke of Ding's family found out we were being this arrogant, they might just call off the engagement, even if they were already married. She had also been walking with a spring in her step lately because her father had just performed a great deed and received praise from the emperor. Madame Zhang's face turned red with anger. Enough, both of you be quiet. The old madam scolded the two daughters-in-law, who were acting like fighting cocks. Elder daughter-in-law, even though we have secured this match with the Duke of Ding's family, we must be even more cautious now. So many eyes are on that boy, Han Zhan. Now that we've managed to get ahead of the others, there are plenty of people who are unhappy about it. If, because of your careless behavior, you cause Jay to lose this marriage, the family temple will be your final destination. Though the matriarch addressed the eldest branch, her eyes remained fixed on the second branch. And you, daughter-in-law of the second branch, if you have any energy to spare, spend it on land. She is the same age as Zhu. Yet she isn't half as sensible. If she isn't better raised, she will have a hard life ahead of her. Hearing the matriarch disparage her daughter and compare her to you, Mrs. Zhou flushed with anger. She dared not show her displeasure to her mother-in-law, so she turned her gaze toward your mother, Mrs. Jiang, her eyes full of malice. Your mother, Mrs. Jiang, simply sat there maintaining a smile. Inwardly, she found it quite strange. Mrs. Zhou is clearly the legitimate daughter of an official. Why is her perspective narrower than hers? A merchant's daughter. Daughter-in-law of the second branch. Though your husband is away, you are still young. Focus on recovering your health, so that when your husband returns, bearing him a legitimate son would be worth more than anything. The matriarch turned her focus back to Mrs. Zhou, striking precisely at her sore spot. Mrs. Zhou's face turned pale in an instant. Having no legitimate son was the greatest pain of her life. Could this really be her fault? The matriarch had strictly forbidden her from following her husband when he was sent away, making it clear she didn't want her to bear a legitimate son. She lowered her head, concealing the hatred in her eyes, whispering, I understand, before falling silent. Life continued in this tepid manner. After your eldest sister, Su Ximei, was betrothed, she grew increasingly poised and dignified. The household began training her as a future duchess. One day, you and Su Xilan went together to offer your congratulations. Greetings, eldest sister. You had a decent relationship with Su Ximei. After all, the age gap was significant, and there were no conflicts of interest. Eldest sister, all of Shengjing is envious of you now. They all say you must have accumulated great fortune to be able to marry the heir of the Duke of Ding. Seeing you and Su Ximei chatting happily, Su Xilan chimed in with a sour tone. You looked at this young girl, utterly speechless. Haven't you had enough time grounded? Sure enough, Su Ximei's face went cold in an instant. No one likes to be told they are marrying above their station. How could it be marrying up? You quickly tried to smooth things over. Our Su family is also a founding Marquis household. Isn't your second uncle serving the country and the people? If you ask me, eldest sister and your future brother-in-law are a match made in heaven, perfectly matched in status. You didn't want to be implicated by this fool and draw the ire of your elders. Su Xilan was left speechless by your retort. She couldn't exactly say her father wasn't serving the nation, could she? She could only pout in sullen silence. Besides, eldest sister's character and talent are top tier among the young ladies of Shengjing. Those people outside are merely jealous. Just listen and let it go. Don't take it to heart. You continue to shower her with endless praise. Su Ximei's expression finally softened. The look she gave you became increasingly kind. Su Xilan curled her lip. Though she disdained your sycophancy, she took the opportunity to back down. After leaving Su Ximei's quarters, your maid, Chang'an, asked with confusion, "Miss, why did you help the second miss? She won't even thank you for it." You smiled slightly. "I came here with her. If she offends eldest sister and grandmother's anger falls upon us, I won't be able to escape either. Just watch. Second sister's punishment will come soon enough." Sure enough, not 2 days later, Su Xilan was once again grounded for a minor offense, and you, being filial and sensible, were rewarded with a heap of gifts from grandmother and your eldest aunt. Your personal treasury became significantly fuller. In the blink of an eye, you turned 7 and officially began your studies at the family school. Su Xilan viewed you as her primary rival. She was constantly acting up, finding fault with everything you did. However, she was soon disappointed. Aside from memorizing texts and practicing calligraphy, your skills in music, chess, painting, and literature were simply unremarkable, a lost cause. You, however, were perfectly clear on the situation. Music, chess, painting, and literature are merely skills that add a bit of polish. If you have that kind of time, you'd be better off practicing martial arts. Your father is a master of calligraphy and painting, so your own calligraphy cannot be too poor. For future social engagements, you need at least one respectable talent. You can't exactly perform smashing boulders on your chest for people, can you? And so, Su Xilan held her breath, working herself to the bone in her studies, grooming herself to be a multi-talented young lady. As a result, she worked herself sick. When Lady Jiang came to visit, she pretended to console Lady Zhou, but her words were laced with stinging barbs. "Sister-in-law, you only have this one daughter. You shouldn't stop caring for her just because she isn't a son." Lady Zhou felt stifled, yet she had no way to retort. And just like that, the days flowed by like water. Once as Su Xilan realized she could never surpass your talent in calligraphy, she eventually attributed it to genetics. She gradually stopped viewing you as a rival. As for you, you were quietly honing another essential survival skill for this era, mimicking the handwriting of others. Soon enough, the day finally arrived for your eldest sister, Su Ximei's coming-of-age ceremony. This was a major event for the Marquis's estate and the center of attention for all of Shengjing. After all, Su Ximei was the future wife of the Duke of Ding's heir. What was even more fortuitous was that, just a few days prior, Han Zhan had just passed the prefectural examinations, placing first as the top scholar. Everyone was waiting to see if in the upcoming palace examinations, he could secure the top spot in the triennial tests, becoming one of the youngest top scholars in the Jin Kingdom. By that time, with the joy of their wedding night and the honor of his success on the Golden List, when Su Ximei married into his family, what immense glory that would bring. You knew full well how much your eldest sister had sacrificed for this very day. Ever since the engagement, she had lived in seclusion, acting with extreme caution, terrified that the slightest mistake would ruin this hard-won marriage alliance. Once, when she couldn't find a way to decline, she attended a banquet, only to be nearly pushed into the water by someone. Ever since then, she had shut herself away in the manor, barely even stepping into the family's back courtyard. Now, these days of living in constant fear were finally coming to an end. Just before your eldest sister Su Ximei's ceremony, news suddenly reached the Marquis's estate. The legitimate daughter of old Madame Qi, your paternal aunt Su Ru, was returning with her only son, Zhongli Su. 3 years ago, when the old Marquis passed away, the entire family had returned to observe the mourning period, and in the blink of an eye, over 3 years had passed. You still remembered your cousin, that big tree, Zhongli Su, who was such a wonderful person. Su Ru was now the Marchioness of the Changping Marquis estate. So, as soon as this news reached the estate, the entire household began to bustle with activity. You, little one, were also required to personally prepare a gift for that cousin whose face you could barely recall. At this time, though you were already 8 years old and had grown a bit taller, you remained as chubby as ever. You didn't really care about your figure. After all, you had been secretly practicing martial arts, firmly believing that one day you would slim down. However, you found that you just couldn't match Su Xilan's height. That was truly hard to explain. Your mother, Lady Jiang, though not particularly tall, wasn't the delicate, petite type either. Your father, Su Xie, stood around 5'9". Your brother, Su Wen, was even a head taller than most of his peers. Why, when it came to you, did you turn out so short and stout? Could it be that all the flaws were concentrated in you alone? For the first time, you fell into a deep state of distress. Were those long legs of yours destined to be gone forever? Your troubles were unknown to Su Xilan. At 8 years old, Su Xilan already possessed a willow-like graceful demeanor. Especially when compared to you, she looked like a little beauty. Although Lady Zhou was quite plain, Su Xilan had inherited all her parents' best traits, so she was quite lovely to look at. She was always very confident, except for the fact that her skin wasn't as fair as yours. She felt she was better than a fatty like you in every way. Thinking of your delicate, fair skin that seemed ready to break at a touch, Su Xilan felt a sense of bitterness, but she consoled herself, thinking that your complexion was likely just because you were fat. After all, people always say, fair and plump. Since that was your only advantage, she decided not to dwell on such a minor flaw. At the same time, Lady Zhou was also coaching Su Xilan. Lanner, when your aunt returns, you must get along well with her. Do you understand? Mrs. Zhou actually disliked her sister-in-law Su Ru, but since her husband was born to a concubine and later achieved some success, their relationship had gradually eased. Mother, she has her own nieces by blood. What am I to her? Why should I be the one to fawn over her? Su Xilan retorted. No matter how much she favors someone, it would be the two nieces from the eldest branch. Even then, there is still the third branch. How would it ever be my turn to curry favor? Mrs. Zhou was so angry, she nearly lost her breath. She could only coax her with kind words. What do you know? Your aunt has an only son, Zhongli Su, and he is a rare talent. He is of a similar age to you. And besides that fat girl in the manor, you are the most suitable choice. The eldest branch's youngest daughter is too young. She is no use at all. Mrs. Zhou was calculating in her heart. Su Ru must be thinking of cementing the family ties. Although her daughter isn't a niece by blood, she is of the right age. And once her husband returns from his post, he is sure to be promoted. By then, it wouldn't be considered overreaching for the Marquis's estate. Mother, I'm still young. What are you saying? Su Xilan's face turned slightly red. Although she was only 8, children in this era were precocious, and she certainly understood her mother's intentions. What is there to be shy about? In a few years, you'll be of marriageable age. Naturally, one must choose in advance. Besides, our Lan is superior to others in both looks and talent. We must choose the best. As for that girl from the third branch, I doubt she'll ever be married off. Actually, no, she could marry down or find a live-in son-in-law. Mrs. Zhou said. A hint of complacency flashed in her eyes. However, Su Xilan felt a tinge of disappointment. The best one is my eldest sister's fiancé. Indeed, it is a pity that your ages do not match. Lady Zhou sighed with a touch of envy before comforting herself. But the heir to the Marquis of Chengping is also a good choice. Although he is young now, he will likely become the next Han Shi. In the third branch of your family, the atmosphere is completely different from theirs. Lady Zhang is also talking to you and Su Wen about the return of Su Ru's family, but she lacks the scheming nature of Lady Zhou. Your cousin and your brother are of a similar age. They play very well together, and he treats you quite well. Put some thought into the gifts you prepare. Lady Zhang instructs you, as she is currently pouring all her energy into trying to get you to lose weight. She has no time to think about such distant matters. Being chubby in childhood is cute, but it is not a good thing as you get older. The Jin state values thinness as beauty, and your trend of gaining weight ruins everything, giving her quite the headache. Lady Zhang even tried putting you on a diet, but your father and Su Wen couldn't bear to see you go hungry and would secretly bring you delicious food, leaving her as the only one playing the bad cop with nothing she could do. Mother, I am still young. I will naturally lose weight when I grow up. You look at your mother, speaking with great confidence. If you have the energy, help me figure out how to grow taller instead. Height is nothing to worry about. I only had a growth spurt when I was 13 or 14. Lady Zhang is not worried about your height. She is only worried about your weight. Really? Then I suppose I'll just have to wait until I'm older to grow tall and thin. You are overjoyed at this news. Sure enough, your long legs won't abandon you. What are you two talking about? A gentle voice sounds out. A gentle voice sounds out. Father, you rush toward him happily. The person who has arrived is your father, Su Che. We were just talking about the gifts for my sister-in-law and Su Ji. Lady Zhang helped Su Che hang up his coat. No worries, I have everything ready. I've prepared a jade flute for Brother Wen and an ancient book for Sister Zhu. Su Ji will like it, Su Che said with a smile. Your father, who dotes on you endlessly for your exceptional talent in calligraphy, had even discovered your ability to master various writing styles, but he kept it a secret from everyone. It remained just a little secret between father and daughter. This suited your wishes perfectly, as you didn't want anyone else to know either. Meanwhile, Lady Zhang was busy preparing for the return of Su Ru's family. Mother, your eldest sister, Su Ximei, walked in. I heard my little aunt is coming back. You must be very busy, Mother. Is there anything I can help you with? Don't worry, I have everything under control. I don't need your help with this. Your priority now is to finish embroidering your dowry after your coming-of-age ceremony. And once your future husband tops the imperial examinations, I will make sure you have a magnificent wedding. That is what matters most. Lady Zhang looked at her proud eldest daughter with a face full of smiles. However, amidst the joy, Lady Zhang had some words for her daughter. Mayor, Mother must tell you this. Your betrothed is outstanding in every way, so there will surely be countless shameless women throwing themselves at him. You must remember, you are the legitimate first-rank wife. You are the eldest legitimate daughter of the Marquis of Anin. No matter how many concubines he may have in the future, you need not care about them. Your children are the key to your status and security. Lady Zhang's tone was icy. As for the concubines, if he favors them, just play along. Once he grows tired of them, you can dispose of them as you see fit. Do not hold a grudge against your husband over mere playthings. You must be poised and virtuous. Manage the household affairs well. Honor your mother-in-law and show kindness to your sisters-in-law. Hold firmly to your status as the legitimate wife. She told you earnestly, as for the illegitimate children, raise them yourself once they are born. First, to display your magnanimity as their legal mother, and second, to keep them from getting too close to their birth mothers. Most importantly, you must find a way to spoil them into ruin. Su Ximei's face turned pale. Her heart and mind were currently filled only with her angelic fiancé. Hearing these words now, she felt as if she had been plunged into an ice cellar. Just as the mother and daughter were talking, the gatekeeper came to report, "My lady, the second aunt is back." Who? The second aunt. Why has she returned so suddenly? She didn't even send word beforehand. Madame Zhang furrowed her brows, full of displeasure. The second aunt she spoke of, Su Fang, was her husband's illegitimate sister. She had married a fifth rank official in a remote area, and word was that she was living quite well. How could she have returned suddenly, without notice? Could something have happened? A sense of foreboding rose in Madame Zhang's heart. Your eldest sister is about to marry into the Duke's estate, and she didn't want any accidents to happen right now. Very well, Su Xizhu, you have already seen through the schemes of this cousin, Zhao. Within the deep courtyards of the Marquis's estate, a new round of maneuvering has already begun. Although Madame Zhang was a first-rank marchioness, facing her illegitimate sister-in-law, who returned in mourning clothes, she had no choice but to brace herself and receive her. Sure enough, as soon as they met, Su Fang burst into tears. "Sister-in-law, my husband has passed away. How miserable is my fate." Zhang looked at this family, looking like refugees, her face as dark as the bottom of a pot. Su Fang looks like she has "I can't survive in my husband's home" written all over her face. Immediately after, she was summoned by the matriarch. Zhou and Zhang were already present. Zhou looked at Su Fang's pathetic state, and her lip curled up in deep disdain. "Greetings, mother." Su Fang knelt on the ground, her posture radiating utter subservience. "These are my children, Zhao Yuan and Zhao Yu. Quick, pay your respects to your grandmother." Zhao Yuan was honest and simple-minded, but Zhao Yu was delicate and beautiful. Zhou only needed one glance before an alarm bell rang in her heart. This girl had an air of seduction about her. She's so beguiling at such a young age. Who knows what she'll be like when she's older? Prodded by the matriarch, Su Fang sobbed out the truth. That pack of ingrates from the Zhao family. The moment her husband passed away, they seized her property and dowry, and even threatened to hold her and her children captive. The matriarch was furious upon hearing this, not out of pity for Su Fang, but because the Zhao family's actions were a direct slap in the face to the Marquis of Annan's estate. "If you ask me, it's because you handled things poorly yourself, sister-in-law." Zhou chimed in with biting sarcasm, her words sharp as daggers. "If you had reached out to the family sooner, would that lowly bunch at the Zhao household ever have dared to bully you?" Su Fang turned deathly pale at the sting, swaying as if she might collapse. Fortunately, the matriarch hadn't lost her wits completely. She immediately ordered Zhang to arrange lodging and dispatched the head steward to the Zhao house to collect the debts. The Su household moved with ruthless efficiency. The head steward arrived at the Zhao house with men in tow, and with a few words, terrified the Zhao clan into revealing their true colors. "Matriarch Zhao, the ladies of our Marquis estate are not to be trifled with. Restore the full list of her dowry, return every penny of her property, or else we'll see you in court," the steward declared, calm and composed. For the sake of his future, the head of the Zhao clan threw old Madame Zhao under the bus, even threatening to force his brother to divorce her. In the end, the Zhao family had to obediently cough up everything they had seized. Su Fang and her son finally had the means to settle down in the capital. "Mother, why must we move out?" When Zhao Yu heard that Su Fang was buying a house to move, she immediately jumped out to object. "Isn't it only right for us to live in the Marquis's estate?" Having just caught a glimpse of the immense wealth of the estate, how could she bear to leave? She still had to rub shoulders with the powerful in the capital. So, Zhao Yu began to scheme her way into the various branches of the estate. One day, she actually found her way to your door. "Is my cousin in?" As Ru Yi led her into the parlor. "You were busy brushing Xiao Bai. Invite my cousin in." You didn't even lift your head. As soon as Zhao Yu entered the room, her eyes began to dart around. She looked at the high pedigree white cat in your arms, and then at the expensive ornaments visible everywhere in your room. A flash of jealousy crossing her eyes. "Third cousin's cat is so cute." She reached out, intending to pet Xiao Bai. "Is Xiao Bai someone just anyone can touch?" It gave a haughty swat of its paw, leaped off your lap, and strutted away with a look of supreme indifference. "Thank you for the compliment, cousin. Xiao Bai is wary of strangers. Don't take it to heart." You replied indifferently. You despise people who get touchy-feely without permission. However, Zhao Yu wasn't deterred by your coldness. "I heard from mother that third uncle is a master of painting and calligraphy, and third cousin is also very talented. I felt a sense of kinship the moment I saw you. We should see more of each other from now on. I hope you don't find me too forward." Her words were clearly an attempt to curry favor with you. Not at all. You put on an innocent, clueless face. "Everything in this household is managed by grandmother and aunt-in-law. My cousins are all very easy to get along with. If you have any business, cousin, you can speak with them just the same." The smile on Zhao Yu's face froze. She had taken the initiative to be friendly, yet you had deftly passed the ball to someone else. She tried to probe a few more times, but when it came to playing dumb, you were a grandmaster. With no other options left, Zhao Yu could only leave behind a purse and depart, feeling dejected. "Miss." Ru Yi entered the room and called out softly, "It is nothing. Things are going to get lively around the manor from now on." You sighed to yourself. Cousin Zhao Yu is a schemer with hidden motives. And paired with that powder keg, Su Xilan, your days of peace and quiet are likely gone for good. However, you don't really care, seeing that she couldn't gain anything from you. Zhao Yu turned her attention to Su Xilan of the second branch, with these two little schemers teaming up. Who knows what kind of trouble they'll stir up next? But that isn't the main point. The main point is your own aunt, Suru, and that cousin of yours who plants pear trees, Zhongli Su. They are about to arrive. All right, Su Xizhu, the main show is about to begin. Your White Lotus cousin, Zhao Yu, has already begun her scheme. Even though Zhao Yu hit a wall with you, she quickly adjusted her strategy. She realized that although the second branch was born of a concubine, your second uncle, Su Cheng, is a man of substance. Therefore, even though Su Cheng speaks coldly to her family, Zhao Yu doesn't mind at all. Compared to a stubborn person like you, she prefers the gullible Su Xilan. Sure enough, though Su Xilan was initially unimpressed by Zhao Yu's fragile act, she couldn't resist Zhao Yu's honeyed words. She kept thinking of ways to flatter her every day. Gradually, her attitude improved quite a bit, while they were busy bonding as sisters. On the other hand, Zhao Yu was plotting a big move with her mother, Su Feng. Silly girl, we are living under someone else's roof. How can this go on? Su Feng still wanted to move out. Mother, don't worry, I have grown up, and I will take care of you all, Zhao Yan promised, patting his chest. What can you do to take care of us? With one sentence, Zhao Yu shattered her brother's illusions. Father is gone. We are nobodies now outside. Who would look up to us? But it's different at the Marquis's residence. We are the legitimate grandchildren, with the Marquis's estate backing us. We can live comfortably. Zhao Yu's words left both Su Feng and Zhao Yuan stunned. As long as we have reason on our side, they won't dare to do anything to us. Ambition was written all over Zhao Yu's face. I am not leaving. I'm going to have a grand wedding. As the granddaughter of the Marquis's house, Su Feng looked at her daughter's ambitious face, feeling bitter inside. But ultimately, she couldn't bear to see her daughter unhappy. She had no choice but to shamelessly continue staying at the Marquis's residence. When Lady Zhang found out, she sneered and gave direct orders to the servants to treat them as nothing more than beggars looking for a handout. Soon, the day for Su Ru and her son's return arrived. The reception they received was a world apart from that of Su Feng's family. The old madame waited at the gate in person, and you and the others were called up early as well. Sister, what is wrong? Why do you look so lethargic? Su Xilan's loud voice successfully drew everyone's attention. Looking at her provocative expression, you sighed and struck back directly. Second sister has misunderstood. I was so excited about seeing our aunt this morning that I couldn't even sleep. Unlike you, sister, who has nothing to worry about and can sleep in peacefully. Su Xilan's face darkened instantly. What you said, isn't that basically calling me unfilial toward our aunt? Ju, you are quite thoughtful. You are niece and aunt by direct blood, so it is only right to be close. With a single sentence, the old madam came to your defense. Su Xilan glared in frustration, but you couldn't care less. Just then, a commotion arose outside the mansion. Grand Mistress, you have finally returned. Steward Su beamed from ear to ear. Mother, let's hurry up and not keep grandmother waiting. A clear, youthful voice called out. You looked up to see a boy of about 10 riding on horseback. His cheeks were still full of baby fat, but it was already clear that he would grow into a remarkably handsome young man. He was Zhongli Su in the main hall. As soon as Su Ru saw the old madam, she threw herself into her arms and wept. After a display of deep mother-daughter affection, your cousin, Zhongli Su, finally made his formal entrance. Thank you for your concern, grandmother. He stepped forward and bowed with perfect etiquette. Su Xilan and Zhao Yu both blushed instantly. Only you kept your eyes locked onto the plate of snowflake cakes in his hand. Those were top-tier pastries worth 100 silver pieces. A plate. Something you barely got to eat twice a year, Zhongli Su. Noticed your gaze, of course. He was used to being the center of attention. So, when he realized his cousin was the only one focusing on something so unusual, he couldn't help but feel curious. He looked at the snowflake cakes in his hand, then looked at you, and a playful smirk pulled at the corner of his mouth. It seems this chubby little cousin of mine is quite interesting. He moved the snowflake cake to the left, then to the right, and your eyes just kept following it back and forth. Zhongli Su's eyes were full of mirth. You haven't changed one bit, still just as amusing. And you haven't lost any of your roundness either. Zhongli Su had always been fond of his chubby cousin. The eldest cousin was older than him, so when he visited grandmother's house as a child, aside from his male cousins, he spent the most time with you and Su Xilan. Su Xilan was too delicate, always crying, and prone to telling tales. But you were always beaming, loved to eat, never cried when you fell, and were so round that you were simply a delight. Years had passed, but your amusing nature had not faded in the slightest. Suddenly, the snowflake cake appeared by your side. You looked up to see your cousin's smiling face. Although he was still young, you could already tell that he would surely grow up to be a stunning beauty. But, to you, a young, handsome boy was not nearly as appealing as a delicious piece of snowflake cake. Su Xilan and Zhao Yu watched as Zhongli Su walked toward you, their expressions darkening, though they were cursing you in their hearts. On the surface, they had to pretend that nothing was wrong. Here, I remember that cousin Ju likes these too. Zhongli Su handed the cake to you, but you couldn't help but feel that the way he pronounced Cousin Jew sounded suspiciously like cousin pig. All you know is how to eat. How embarrassing, Su Xilan muttered under her breath, her eyes filled with unconcealable jealousy. This fatty, I really don't know why she is such a magnet for attention. The matriarch watched Zhang Lisu hand you the pastry, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. She was quite pleased. These two children, it seems they really are fated to be together. Upon seeing this scene, Suru's smile faded slightly. Suru knew very well that while he had a mild temperament, he wasn't close to just anyone. She had originally thought her son had forgotten you, but seeing it now, it seemed he was still quite fond of you. Although you were her own niece, she certainly liked you enough. But still, your father was a man of no standing, and your family offered no real leverage. There was absolutely no way you could ever marry her son. She knew the matriarch's plans, but she decided to pretend she didn't. The children were still young anyway. Her son could even marry a princess. Big sister, these are second sister's two children, Yuener and you. This is your first time meeting them. Zhang spoke up from the side. Suru gave Su Fang's family an arrogant look. A perfunctory smile plastered on her face. She had Zhongli, Su pay his respects to them, gave out some meager gifts, and then quickly turned her attention to Su Ximei. I heard Mei has gotten engaged to the heir of the Duke's estate. I heard about it even back in my hometown. They say the heir is like a man descended from heaven. Our Mei is truly blessed. It is only because our Mei possesses such outstanding character and talent that she earned such a wonderful match. Suru looked at Su Ximei, beaming brilliantly. Su Ximei was somewhat shy, but Zhang was overjoyed, engaging Suru in lively conversation. Zhou curled her lips in disdain, while Zhang wore a knowing, meaningful smile. Suru had been spoiled since childhood. She didn't have much of a relationship with her sisters-in-law, especially with Zhang. That Suru is being so amiable to Zhang now is likely on account of Su Ximei's engagement. One could tell just by the gifts she gave the juniors. The sister-in-law's standards remain as lofty as ever. The gifts for Zhao's two children were clearly just thrown together as an afterthought. Su Fang could barely keep her composure at the time. Zhao Yu looked at the gifts in the others' hands, her expression growing quite unpleasant. She tugged at Su Xilan, hoping to seize the chance to approach and speak with Zhang Lisu. Suru watched Zhao Yu's movements, a hint of mockery flashing across her face. Her son, is he someone just anyone can go up to? Suru curled her lip, looking at Su Fang's rather tacky appearance. Su, why don't you and Brother Jay go find your uncle? I'm sure they must miss you too. Suru gave the order. Zhang Lisu shoved a snowflake cake into your hand, then took his leave of the others, heading over to his uncle. Zhao Yu and Su Xilan had just risen, only to watch Zhang Lisu walk away. They sat back down in defeat and glared at you fiercely. You fatty. You didn't even say thank you. If it were them, they definitely would have jumped at the chance to chat with their cousin. You foolishly took a bite of the snowflake cake, still not quite grasping what had happened. Zhang watched you, looking so naive, and shook her head. She didn't think much of it. After all, the hungry look you had, she had seen that too. Following that, the juniors all left. The old lady and the three daughters-in-law kept Suru company. Su Fang found an excuse and left as well. Conversation started up again in the room. The old lady asked about how Suru had been living these past years. When will your husband be back? My mother-in-law wasn't feeling well on the road, so I brought a Su back first to prepare the manor. I expect he will arrive in a few more days, Suru explained. The old mistress then asked about the relationship between Suru and her husband. Her words were filled with concern. As it turned out, back then, out of jealousy, Suru had her husband's head maid beaten and forcibly fed abortifacient to his pregnant concubine, causing the loss of the child. And that is how the rift in my relationship with my husband began. Over those years in the Changping Marquis's estate, illegitimate sons and daughters kept appearing one after another. Yet, Suru remained childless. A mocking smile appeared on Suru's face. Isn't it because of that woman who's pregnant again that my mother-in-law made excuses about feeling unwell and had her send me back early? She sneered inwardly. That woman's offspring are simply inferior. She is nowhere near as good as her Asu. Seeing her daughter so stubborn and unresponsive, the old mistress could only sigh repeatedly. She urged Suru to have another legitimate son or daughter, but Suru only smiled and remained silent. She was proud by nature, and the humiliating fact that her husband ignored her, leaving her to live like a widow, was something she would keep buried deep within herself. Helpless, the old mistress had no choice but to dismiss her daughters-in-law. Hoping to persuade Suru more privately, Zhang used the kitchen matters as an excuse and left first. After Zhou and Zhang came out, Zhou looked at Su Fang's room, a sarcastic smile playing on her lips. Truly, a legitimate daughter is more precious than a concubine's child. Look, the whole household has been preparing for so long, and mother and the eldest sister-in-law are so afraid of displeasing our sister-in-law in any way. Madame Zhou's words carried a pointed meaning. Everything had been done in a rush when Su Fang returned. Madame Jiang didn't take the bait. She just wanted to return to her room and rest. But Madame Zhou wouldn't let it go. Sister-in-law. Look at our sister-in-law. She's only in her 20s, yet she looks much older than her years. It's clear her life isn't very happy. She lowered her voice. Her husband doesn't favor her. And no matter how glorious things look on the outside, what lies beneath? Only one knows for oneself. Zhang listened to Zhou's increasingly inappropriate remarks, not even daring to look at her. Zhou realized what she had said, her expression turning sour. The sister-in-law is filial, observing mourning for her father-in-law, so looking a bit haggard is only natural. She'll recover with some rest. Zhang offered her a way out. Sigh. Su Ru's temper hasn't changed a bit. I reckon that besides the eldest sister-in-law and Mei, she doesn't think much of the rest of us. Zhou changed the subject. Although Su looks perfectly fine, whoever becomes her daughter-in-law in the future will surely taste the bitterness alone. Upon reaching the fork in the path, Zhou left with a smile. She intended to have her daughter marry Zhongli Su, so she had to sound a warning to you. Eliminate all potential enemies. Zhou looked at Jiang, thinking to herself, you always say that it is enough for your daughter to marry into a family that cherishes her, and that you don't care about status, right? Now, she would see if Jiang was as high-minded as she claimed. Listening to Zhou's words, Jiang paused for a moment. Then, an expression of difficulty appeared on her face. She truly had never considered forming a marriage alliance with her sister-in-law. With your demeanor, the sister-in-law probably wouldn't think much of you either. It would be all too easy for a mother-in-law to torment a daughter-in-law then. She shook her head, thinking that everyone was looking too far ahead. You still have 5 or 6 years before you need to discuss marriage. There is no hurry. She has money, and you are a legitimate daughter of the Marquis's house. It might even be better to marry into a smaller family. Jiang thought of your father, feeling it would be better to keep him in the loop, so you don't end up in an inexplicable marriage arrangement later. Soon enough, Su Ru took her son back to the Changping Marquis's mansion. When the Marquis of Changping returned to the capital to pay a visit to the Marquis of Annan's estate, you have no memory of this uncle-in-law, but seeing his somewhat aloof demeanor, you feel quite deeply that cousin Dashu grew up to be this way is truly the result of his own efforts. Growing up under a cold father and an arrogant mother, that he could become as gentle as jade is entirely to his own credit. The old madam hinted at her concern for her daughter, hoping she might have more children, but the Marquis of Changping only responded politely, while thinking nothing of it in his heart. Watching her son-in-law's family leave, the old madam sighed repeatedly to herself. She truly felt there was nothing more she could do. She could only pray that Zhongli Su would successfully inherit the Marquis of Changping's estate. Soon after, it was time for Su Ximei's coming-of-age ceremony. The entire estate began to bustle with activity once again. You are still young and cannot be of much help, so aside from watching everyone busy themselves every day, you just hold to buy, eating, drinking, and playing to your heart's content until you heard of a certain matter. Because of Su Ximei's marriage contract, many people wanted to attend this ceremony, especially for the roles that would allow them to be seen. Many people pulled strings to try and secure them. This originally had nothing to do with you, but there is no escaping trouble when it falls from the sky. It started with Lady Zhou from the second branch, who set her sights on the role of the attendant at Su Ximei's ceremony. Thus, and so, while paying respects to the old madam in the morning, she brought it up on the spot. Mother, the preparations for Mayor's ceremony are almost complete. Logically, as an aunt, I shouldn't interfere, but since none of the sisters in the family were chosen for any of the roles, doesn't that seem a bit improper? Those who don't know the truth might think that the sisters of our Marquis's estate are not on good terms. Su Xizhu, you are quite the magnet for trouble. You don't seek out trouble, but trouble always seeks you out. It started because of that fool, Lady Zhou. She wanted Su Xilan to be the attendant for your eldest sister's ceremony. That role is a prestigious one that grants great visibility. The main guest is your elder sister's future mother-in-law, the Duchess of Dingguo. The attendant is the legitimate daughter of the Minister of Rights. How could it not be one of our own sisters' turn? Lady Zhou had mentioned it to Lady Jiang, but Lady Jiang put her off on the surface, while in reality, she had already chosen her own niece. Lady Zhou was furious and brought it straight to the old madam. Mother, people who don't know might think our Marquis's house sisters aren't on good terms. The old madam's face instantly turned ugly. Lady Jiang stepped forward immediately. Mother, it is not that I am favoring my own family, but Sister Mei's coming-of-age ceremony is simply too important. My niece is 14. The age is just right. Sister Zhu is only 8, and Sister Lan is also still young. If there were any slip-ups, not only would it affect Sister Mei, but it would also be bad for their own reputations. She said this with airtight logic, and the old madam's anger dissipated by more than half. Sister-in-law, how come you didn't tell me that Sister Zhu wanted to be the attendant? Lady Zhou looked sneeringly at your mother, Lady Jiang. Otherwise, I would never have gone to the eldest sister-in-law to be a nuisance. Your mother, Lady Jiang, set down her teacup and said calmly, I never mentioned such a thing. That is right. The third sister Sister-in-law didn't say anything. Lady Zhang replied with a sneer. It is just that if Sister Mei wants to help her sisters, of course it should be a legitimate daughter from the main line. Second sister-in-law, wouldn't you agree? As soon as these words were out, Lady Zhou's face turned green. She is the wife of a concubine-born son, and she birthed a concubine-born daughter herself. Lady Zhang's words were a direct slap to her face. With Sister Zhu looking like that, the eldest sister-in-law shouldn't be afraid of guests laughing at us. Lady Zhou, in a moment of madness, blurted it out. Lady Zhou, the old madam slapped the table. Is that something an aunt should be saying? Go and copy the classic for women and admonitions for women 100 times. You are not to leave this room until you have finished copying them. Lady Zhou trembled with fear, but she dared not say another word. She only glared resentfully at your mother. Lady Jiang sighed, knowing she had been caught in the crossfire. You had become the knife lady Jiang used to deal with Lady Zhou, and she could not simply let it go at that. Sister-in-law, rest assured. Your mother looked at Lady Jiang, smiling gently. Since you have such high hopes for Juji, then as for this role of attendant, I will thank you on her behalf, sister-in-law. Lady Jiang's face stiffened. She had never expected that Lady Jiang would pull such a stunt. Sister-in-law, I have already made arrangements with my maiden family for this. Lady Jiang's voice trailed off weakly. It seems I misunderstood your intentions, sister-in-law. Lady Jiang sipped her tea again. Since it's already settled, there's no need to change it. The matriarch spoke up then. I have a box of oriental pearls. Use them to have some clothes made for Ju. Lady Jiang also hurried to declare that she had a few bolts of tribute satin, which she would send to you. Of this entire farce, you had become the biggest winner. Your mother returned to your room with the compensation from the matriarch. And Lady Zhang, looking at all those fine things, your eyes went wide. When Su Xilan found out, she was so furious. She cried in her room for a while. Zhao Yu went to see her, and she sobbed even harder. Don't tell me you didn't know. Everyone in the manor is laughing at me. I can't even compare to that fatty. Su Xilan gritted her teeth. Cousin, please don't say that. Zhao Yu advised her kindly from the sidelines. Grandmother is biased. It is useless for you to be this angry. With just a few words, she fanned all of Su Xilan's flames of anger. Sure enough, before Zhao Yu had even left the courtyard, Su Xilan rushed out in a fit of rage, looking as if she were ready to pick a fight to the death with someone. Zhao Yu was so scared, she turned pale. She quickened her pace and hurried back to her quarters. You were busy grooming Dabai when you saw Su Xilan storm in like a firecracker. You hateful thing. You were definitely enjoying my misery. Su Xilan raised her hand, ready to strike you. You panicked and dodged, and accidentally bumped into Su Xilan. With a sudden crack, Su Xilan screamed and fell to the floor. Her leg had been severely injured. Old Madam's trusted servant, Nanny Chi, arrived with people shortly after. Third miss. What happened here? Nanny, she asked you directly. I'm not quite sure. You said, with an innocent look. Second sister came in and tried to hit me. I dodged and accidentally bumped into her. You hung your head, acting all embarrassed. Nanny Chi looked at your chubby frame, then glanced at the beanpole. Thin Su Xilan, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. You're lying, you did that on purpose. Su Xilan didn't care anymore and started throwing a tantrum on the spot. Nanny Chi narrowed her eyes and immediately had people carry Su Xilan away. Have the estate physician treat her properly. Don't rush it. Make sure there are no lasting injuries. You watched as Su Xilan was carried off, a cold smirk tugging at the corner of your mouth. Your eldest sister's coming of age ceremony is in 5 days. It seems she won't be making it. You called for Chang'an and told her to investigate who Su Xilan met before coming here. Sure enough, it was Zhao Yu. You raised an eyebrow. This Zhao Yu is really asking for trouble. She thinks she is clever, but she doesn't realize that in a place like the Marquis's estate, the worst thing you can be is overly clever. And just as expected, after hearing Mother Chi's report, the matriarch gave a cold laugh. As expected, none of them have any decorum. As for Lan, have the manor physician treat her well. After that, she and her mother shall transcribe books. As for you, their family is in a period of mourning, so they should avoid unnecessary social outings. Both she and her brother should wait until the mourning period ends before returning to their studies. Since Ju has been wronged, Lan shall have her stipend docked for 6 months. Give that stipend to Ju as compensation and call it settled. The matriarch's handling of this matter directly trampled the dignity of the second branch. It seems that second aunt of yours will have to keep her head down from now on. Su Xizhu, you really pulled the rug out from under the second branch this time. Inside the Marquis's estate, everyone is saying that the standing of the third branch has changed completely because of your eldest sister's betrothal. Although the matriarch was the legitimate mother before, she always had some reservations about the second branch. Now, she stands on firmer ground. She took advantage of Su Xilan's incident to give the second branch a severe warning. Indeed, when your second uncle Su Xun heard about it, he wrote a letter back apologizing and scolding Zhou and Su Xilan. But that is a story for later. Back to Zhao Yu. When she returned to her room, she was deeply unsettled, pacing in circles with a pale face. When her little maid reported that Su Xilan had been severely punished, she grew even more restless. She wanted to go see Su Xilan to ask exactly what happened, because even after sending people to inquire, she hadn't learned a single thing. She was afraid Su Xilan would betray her. Meanwhile, Han Zhan came today to present his fiancé, that is to say, your eldest sister, with a hairpin for her coming-of-age ceremony. This was so the two families could hope they might build some affection before marriage. So it was specially arranged. After all, it would be inappropriate for him to attend your eldest sister's coming-of-age ceremony. Other than the initial introduction, he hadn't seen your eldest sister since. After Han Zhan watched your eldest sister strive to accept the hairpin with modest grace and a blushing face, he took his leave. He still had to prepare for the grand examination in 2 months. The Marquis's estate had specially created this time for them to be alone, and everyone else had cleared out. After all, the Marquis's estate is climbing high to marry into the Dingguo Duke's family, so they had to show due respect. It's a pity Han Zhan handled things so quickly. When he left, no one from the Su household accompanied him. Your eldest sister was still lost in her shyness and forgot to show him the way, relying on his memory. As Han Zhan passed by a grove of trees, he saw you and Zhao Yu. He instinctively stayed silent. Why is the third cousin here? Is she also going to see the second cousin? When Zhao Yu saw you, she initiated the conversation. Not at all. I'm waiting for the cousin here. You stroked Xiao Bai and said indifferently, what does the third cousin mean by this? Are you planning to go see the second cousin with me? Zhao Yu smiled and reached out to pull you. I heard the second cousin was injured in your courtyard today. I thought the third cousin would be very worried. You said bluntly, I'm not worried at all. It is just that you, cousin, have been instigating the second sister for so long. But who knew the second sister would lose her temper so easily and act in a way that exceeded your expectations? I imagine you can't find out what happened next and are likely losing sleep over it. You'll definitely go looking for the second sister to pry for information. That is why I've been waiting here specifically for you, cousin. Listening to your conversation, Han Zhan looked at you, the chubby girl holding a cat, and his eyes flickered. He remembered now. You are that girl from the third branch. 2 years have passed. Still just as chubby. Still looks just as pinchable. I don't understand what you're talking about, cousin. If you'll excuse me, I'm going to see our second cousin now. Zhao Yu tried to act as if nothing was wrong. I'd advise you not to go see her. I doubt our aunt will give you a warm welcome right now. Your words made Zhao Yu freeze in her tracks. Whatever you're planning, I suggest you just give it up. Do you really think we don't know you provoked our second sister? You wanted her and me to tear each other apart, so you could look like the gentle, virtuous one. You looked at her, your gaze piercing. You don't really think you're that clever, do you? Even if our second sister has a bit of a temper, she's still known to the world as a talented lady. It is just the temperament of a talented girl. You're trying to step on us to build your own reputation. What exactly were you thinking? You continued, pressuring her. In terms of status, we are the direct granddaughters of the Marquis's house. You're just a granddaughter from the maternal side. In terms of support, we have the Marquis's house standing behind us, while you have to rely on it. So where do you get the confidence to scheme against the young ladies of the Marquis's household? You originally didn't want to bother with this, since Zhao Yu was in a somewhat awkward position anyway. But if she wants to step on me to get ahead, then no way. I want to grow up carefree. Having Su Xilan as a loose cannon around is already enough. I don't need another scheming cousin. Zhao Yu's eyes turned red, looking pitiful and fragile. Cousin, I don't know what you're saying. I didn't do anything. You scoffed coldly. Cousin, who did you learn this act from? Your family's concubines. Don't tell me you're still too young to have that kind of grace. Even if you do, as a young girl, younger than you, I don't fall for this act either. Han Zhan also broke into a smile. He remarked that Zhao Yu's expression just now looked so familiar. It turned out he often saw the same thing at home. Me, Zhao Yu, was on the verge of tears from your stinging words. Suppressing her rage, third cousin, I know you look down on me. My father is gone, and my family has come to rely on the Marquis's estate. But I am also a cousin of the Marquis's family, though not as noble as you. I am not someone you can slander as you please. You sighed. If you want to treat others as fools, I don't mind, but please don't come and provoke me, and don't use Su Xilan as a pawn. I don't need to do anything this time. I expect you'll know the consequences soon enough. Just know that there won't be a next time. I'm not in the mood to play these domestic power games with you. You said bluntly, but you were right about one thing. I truly do look down on you, not because of your background, but because of the way you rely on the Marquis's estate, while simultaneously trying to step on it to get ahead. It is truly beneath contempt. Having said that, you carried the child and walked away. Zhao Yu kept her head down, remaining silent. Suddenly, she watched the direction you left in, muttering to herself, one day, I will make all of you who look down on me crawl at my feet. After you left, Han Zhan revealed himself. Young master, that chubby girl doesn't look very old, but she sure has a sharp tongue. Han Zhan's personal attendant, Jixiang, gave a thumbs up. Han Zhan felt a bit embarrassed. Although he didn't intend to eavesdrop, he hadn't stepped away either, which was ultimately not very proper. But Jixiang is right. To think that the little girl who used to talk to cats is now so formidable. Meanwhile, because of what you said, Zhao Yu had no heart to visit Su Xilan anymore. She returned to her quarters, and upon hearing the old madam's verdict from Nanny Chi, she staggered, 3 years of mourning. 3 years of being barred from studies for her and her brother. This is cutting off their livelihood. Su Fang fainted upon hearing this. Zhao Yu's face turned ashen, her entire body trembling. Zhao Yuan sat dejectedly on a chair. When Su Fang woke up, she saw her son and daughter sitting in the room, silent and motionless. Recalling Nanny Chi's words, she looked at Zhao Yu. So furious, she began to cry. She had long warned her daughter not to provoke the children of the manor. Yet you just wouldn't listen. Second, Grand Aunt, although you must observe mourning for your late husband, you cannot neglect the upbringing of your children, especially Yu Jie. She will have to marry one day. At such a young age, she is already too clever by half. When she grows up, what family would dare marry such a sharp-tongued bride? Nanny Chi's words were every bit piercing. The Marquis's estate is not missing the 3 pairs of chopsticks you use. Su Fang could not understand what Zhao Yu had done to make the old madam act this way without sparing them any dignity at all. Now, they were truly in a difficult position. Yu Jie, what exactly did you do? Are you still not going to tell me? Su Fang looked at her daughter and demanded sternly, what did I do? I did nothing. Zhao Yu raised her head, a burning fire flashing in her eyes. It was just Su Xilan who went to cause trouble for Su Xizhu, and I was just caught in the crossfire. Why would they take their anger out on you? Su Fang was no fool. Her daughter was clearly not telling the truth. Because I'm unlucky. I hadn't even left Su Xilan's courtyard when she started acting crazy. Zhao Yu sneered. So much for a centuries old noble family. They just see that we're widowed and fatherless, so they think we're easy targets. The Marquis's estate wouldn't dare punish their own, so they just shifted their anger onto me. You, are you still not telling your mother the truth? Su Fang was trembling with anger. Nothing in this estate escapes the old madam's notice. The tricks you're using are ones she abandoned long ago. Then what? Should we just sit back and do nothing? Zhao Yu was unwilling to give up. Su Xilan, Su Xizhu, and I are all the same age, even though we're living in the Marquis's estate now. When it comes to any good things in the future, won't they always get them first? Do you expect me to be as cautious as you were my whole life, only to be married off to some remote place by the estate? I'm just a granddaughter on the maternal side. Where could I possibly marry into? If I don't start building a good reputation now, how will the estate know my worth and help me secure a good marriage in the future, or use me for a strategic alliance? Su Fang couldn't believe her daughter was so bold. It is just a matter of gain and loss. Otherwise, how would my value stand out? Zhao Yu said it as if it were only natural. Su Fang collapsed back and let out a bitter laugh. She didn't regret her daughter plotting against Su Xilan and Su Xizhu. She only regretted that her methods were too clumsy, or rather, that she had miscalculated Su Xilan's temper. You don't understand, Su Fang said powerlessly. Even if Xizhu and Xilan had poor reputations, they would still marry into good families as the wives of legal heirs. But you, even if you were valued for an alliance, you would only be sent to some powerful man as a concubine. Zhao Yu's face turned pale, but she gritted her teeth and said, I'd rather be a concubine to a powerful man than the wife of a pauper. Su Fang looked at the ambition in her daughter's eyes in despair, suddenly feeling very tired. A concubine's daughter, is not so easily attained. Her own concubine mother vanished without a trace, not even making a single ripple in the water. Watching her daughter possessed by such madness, Su Fang felt both heartache and misery. What does Brother Yuan say? Mother, let's move away. I will study hard once we are outside, and in the future, I will support you both. I will definitely find sister a good marriage, Zhao Yuan said earnestly. No, we are not moving, Zhao Yu shrieked. Otherwise, wouldn't all the grievances we've suffered be for nothing? She argued. Even if the entire Marquis household was dissatisfied with her, the household cared about its reputation after all, and the matter hadn't been fully exposed. After some time, everyone will forget. Once the punishment is over, she would go to curry favor with the old madame again, and curry favor with the third branch of the Marquis household. If 1 year doesn't work, then 2 years. She was still young. She could always turn things around. We are not leaving. If we don't leave, what will you do for these 3 years? Will you just waste them? Su Fang laughed bitterly. 3 years. It is neither long nor short. If you children stop your studies when the mourning period is over, trying to pick up what you had learned before, that would take so much effort, and you will fall far behind your peers. It is fine. We have books. We'll self-study. Mother can teach us too. Zhao Yu looked at her mother and brother, trying hard to build up their spirits. A strange light gleamed in Zhao Yu's eyes. In the future, as long as she was careful not to be caught slipping, the Marquis household would never treat them too poorly, for the sake of their own face. Therefore, they could not move. Once they moved, there would be no way to undo everything, especially moving in a way that looked like they were being driven out. Impossible. My learning is limited. How can I teach you? Su Fang shook her head. Besides, your brother cannot afford to lose 3 years. We must leave. We'll leave after May's coming. coming-of-age ceremony. You go look for a place to stay first. It doesn't need to be big, just enough for us to live in. Zhao Yuan nodded. Zhao Yu jumped up suddenly. She screamed, I'm not leaving. If mother and brother want to go, you'll have to take my corpse with you. With that, she ran out. Zhao Yuan looked at his mother, then at the direction his sister had gone, feeling at a loss. Su Fang opened her eyes wide, crying loudly as she patted the edge of the bed. What a disaster. What a wretched disaster. Regardless of how Zhao Yuan's family fared, Su Ximei's coming-of-age ceremony arrived as scheduled. Su Xilan discovered she still couldn't get out of bed, and in her fury, she smashed quite a few things. Zhao Yu's family, being in mourning, did not attend either. So at this moment, you were sitting alone on a stool. Fortunately, just then, Zhang Li Su arrived. Zhang Li Su saw you sitting bored in the corner, eyes darting around, and finding no one watching, you stuffed something into your mouth, your eyes crinkling into crescents, cheeks puffed out, just like a little hamster. You looked absolutely adorable. Cousin Bamboo, what are you eating? Ahem. Someone spoke right by your ear suddenly, making you choke for a second. You looked up to see Cousin Dashu, smiling down at you, and you rolled your eyes at him in annoyance. Honestly, don't you know it is scary to sneak up on people like that? You beckoned, motioning for Zhang Li Su to sit down. Here, I had the kitchen make these. They're delicious. You shoved a pouch into Zhang Li Su's hand. I heard Big Sister's ceremony will last for quite a long time. Who knows when dinner will actually start? Let's have a snack to tide us over. Zhang Li Su followed your lead and quietly popped one into his mouth too. It is dried meat. Delicious. Zhang Li Su gives a thumbs up. You lift your chin with pride. When it comes to food, I'm a real pro. Su Ximei's coming-of-age ceremony was a magnificent affair. The generous gifts from the Duke of Ding's estate filled half the courtyard. Noble ladies from all over the capital gathered together. Everyone envied her wonderful marriage match. When the ceremony concluded, Su Ximei, dressed in elaborate ceremonial robes, took the golden step, shake hair ornament from the Duchess of Ding. Her eyes held a hidden shyness and anticipation, but no one noticed that her hands hanging at her sides were clenched until her knuckles turned white. After the guests dispersed, I sat under the old locust tree in the courtyard, holding Xiaobai. Zhang Li Su sat beside me, still clutching the last piece of dried meat I had given him. Cousin's marriage? Is it really a match made in heaven? I suddenly spoke up, breaking the quiet of the twilight. He was taken aback and turned to look at me. The setting sun fell across his brows, softening the young man's profile. Marriage is a personal matter, but the heir of Ding is protective of his own, so I imagine he won't let cousin suffer any grievances. I chuckled softly and didn't say anything more. I had already seen a glimpse of Han Zhan's true intentions that day in the woods when he heard me talk back to Zhao Yu. The amusement in his eyes was unmistakable. Someone as perceptive as him wouldn't necessarily let Su Ximei be a figurehead consort. And as for Su Ximei, well, schooled in schemes by Madame Zhang, she might just be capable of holding down the Duke's estate. This marriage of mutual interest would likely be a successful one. A few days later, Su Fang finally moved out of the Marquis's residence with Zhao Yuan. Zhao Yu stubbornly refused to leave. The old madame couldn't be bothered with her. She simply ordered the servants to find her a remote little courtyard and provide only the bare minimum for her daily needs, leaving her to fend for herself. Without Su Xilan there to act as a firecracker, and with Zhao Yu no longer stirring up trouble, the Marquis's estate became much more peaceful. Having been through the incident with Su Xilan's injury, Madame Zhou reined in her sharp edges, no longer daring to act recklessly before the old madame and Madame Zhang. She spent her time copying books with Su Xilan in their quarters. The prestige within the household gradually returned to the first and third branches. Mother continued to rack her brain every day on how to help me lose weight, while father remained buried in his calligraphy and paintings, occasionally teaching me a few strokes, praising how my mimicry of his handwriting grew more uncanny by the day. My brother Su Wen was often running about outside, and he actually managed to find an orphan girl skilled in medicine for me. I settled her into a separate courtyard, teaching her to read and write, and she, in turn, tended to my health with the utmost care. As time went by, I actually began to slim down a bit, although I couldn't be called slender yet. I no longer looked like my old round self. Han Zhan truly lived up to expectations, taking first place in the palace examinations, becoming the youngest top scholar in the Jin Kingdom. On the day of the wedding, the red dowry procession stretched from the Duke's estate all the way to the Marquis's. Su Ximei sat inside the bridal sedan chair, lifting the corner of the curtain, and spotted me standing among the crowd. She gave me a small smile, and in that smile, there was finally a touch of genuine sincerity. After the wedding, Su Ximei was exactly as Zhang Li Su had said, being shielded exceptionally well by Han Zhan. He declined the beauties bestowed by the emperor and pushed aside the overtures of various powerful figures. There was only one mistress in his household, Su Ximei. Their inner court remained quiet and undisturbed, and Su Ximei proved her worth, giving birth to a legitimate son the following year, firmly securing her position as the Duke's daughter-in-law. Riding on this wave of good fortune, the Marquis's estate gradually recovered its former glory. A few more years passed. I had grown into a graceful young woman. My calligraphy became a marvel in the capital. I would occasionally stand in for father to write letters, and no one could tell the difference. Su visited the Marquis's estate often. Sometimes he would play chess with father. Other times, he would take me to the pear garden outside the city for sweets. He said, "The way you used to chase after me for snowflake cakes as a child." He had remembered, for years, the old madame once hinted, wishing for me and Su to become closer through marriage. But mother smiled and declined. She said, "My daughter does not need to marry for the sake of family alliances. She can marry anyone as long as she is happy." Father nodded as well, saying that his Juer deserved the finest love in the world. That day, the flowers in the pear garden were in full bloom. Su handed me a box of snowflake cakes, exactly the same as the ones from back then. He looked at me, his eyes filled with an endless tenderness. "Cousin Ju, the life ahead is long. May I accompany you to taste all the delicacies in the world?" I bit into a snowflake cake, the sweetness spreading from my tongue to my heart. Shelby brushed against my ankles, and pear blossoms fell upon my shoulders. The turmoil of the Marquis's estate, the schemes of the world, all seemed to drift away like smoke. It turns out the best life of all is not about seeking power or walking a path of constant calculation, but simply cherishing those by your side, tasting the sweetness of the world together, safe and content, year after year.